Hi guys, welcome to another one of my videos about design patterns in C#. In this video, we're going to talk about the Singleton design pattern. The Singleton design pattern is used when you want to make a class of which you only want to have one instance at all times. So suppose that, for example, you're going to talk with the legacy system and read a file, for example, from that legacy application, and that application only allows you to have one and only one file reader at all times. So if, for example, you create an ordinary file reader, chances are that you can have more than one object of that type. So my file reader should be implemented in a way that I cannot create more than one object and only one object of it. Now let's dive in and let's go to Visual Studio and talk about how we can implement this very beautiful design pattern. So in Visual Studio, I've got a solution called Singleton Design Pattern. This is a simple console application. I haven't done anything special really. Now I'm going to create a class here, right? I'm going to call it file reader. This file reader have a property type string. I'm going to call this file or path or something like that. So I can have, of course, a constructor and a constructor that just gets the file and then does something like this. I'm going to say not specified, for example, here. And let's say I'm going to rename this, right? I'm going to say file path, something like this. Next. So now I can come here to my main method and create a file reader, right? So I'm going to say this is my first file reader, and I'm going to say, okay, this is a file reader, and the name of the file is just some file. And then I'm going to create another file reader. And I'm going to set the path for the next object. I'm going to say reader2, right? So now let's start the application. So I have two file readers. Let's say file reader.file path. File path. And then I'm going to start this without debugger, and I get two different file paths. So this is exactly how we do ordinary classes, right? We can have as many objects of this type as we want, but in the case of a singleton class, we want to implement it in a way that only one object of that type exists at all times. So now let's turn this ordinary file reader class into singleton file reader, and you will see in a couple of minutes that at all times during the life cycle of our application, we will only have one and only one object of this file. So first, let's move this to another file using ReSharper. The first thing to do when you want to create a singleton class is to just make it sealed, because you want to make it sealed so that other people cannot inherit from your file reader and change it. Then we're going to create a private static type, an object of type file reader, and a private static object called block and I'm going to talk about this lock in a couple of minutes. If I make my constructor public, of course other people can come and make as many objects as they want, right? So I'm going to turn this into a private constructor, and then I'm going to just do something here. Now, of course, if I want to make my constructor private, I have to provide other means for the client of this file or the consumer of this file to be able to make objects. So I'm going to create a class, a method, which is public and static. I'm going to call this get instance, and this get instance returns a file reader. Now, I'm going to lock on this lock, and yeah, let's do this first. Yeah, let's do this first lock, and then I want to say if instance equals null, right? So if it is null, I'm gonna instantiate it for the first time. New file reader. Else, I'm gonna return it. Now, let's recap. First, my class should be public and sealed. This is very important because you don't want to allow other people to just inherit from your file reader and change its behavior in some ways. The constructor should be private so that other people cannot just, new up your type and make objects. But you have to have a public and static method which can be used to create or get a new file reader. So this returns a file reader, and we call it get instance. And this lock is used in multi-threaded applications. C# apps could be multi-threaded. So if we lock on this lock before checking whether instance is null or not, even if the application that is making use of this file reader is multi-threaded, it will not be able to create more than one instance. But if we do not do this, chances are that two threads check this instance simultaneously, this condition actually, and then the application results in having more than one instance. Now let's go to our program CS. Of course, because my constructor is private, I cannot do this anymore. I can create a file reader with the method that I have, get instance, right? Now I'm going to change reader.filePath to something like this is set on the first object, right? And the next object is of course going to be instantiated like this. And then I'm gonna just console out the file path of these two objects. Just note that I have not set the file path on the second object. So because it is a string, of course it doesn't have anything in it just now. But you will see that when I start my application, both the objects refer to the same file path. So both of these objects are pointing to the same thing. I can prove that to you using this. Now let's debug, start without debugging, and I will see true. So is reader 1 equal to reader 2? Yes. Both of them refer to the same object. So even if I try 1,000 times to get an instance of file reader using this method, I will get the same object. And of course, I cannot new up that file reader because it doesn't have a public constructor. So this is the singleton design pattern. It makes sure that a type like file reader will have only one object at all times. So the consumer of this class is not able to create more than one object of this type. And the first time that they call the get instance method, they will get a new instance, this field. And the next time, if they call this method, because instance is not null, they will get the same object. So no new object is returned. So this was singleton design pattern. Stay tuned for my upcoming videos about other design patterns in C#. I hope you've enjoyed this and thank you for watching.